Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. This week, I am sitting down with Tara Meehan, a marketing professional who has led social media, SEO, email, and content marketing campaigns across financial services, wealth management, and the nonprofit space for nearly 2 decades. Now, some of you may know Meehan is my married name, but Tara and I are not related. This is my first time meeting her, and I was immediately drawn to her unique perspective on one of the most challenging aspects of marketing in this industry, which is navigating compliance restrictions. And so Tara brings a really refreshing viewpoint that compliance does not have to be the roadblock that so many advisors think it is. So in our conversation, Tara and I are diving deep into the marketing challenges that advisors face when working under broker-dealers or in wirehouse firms where compliance can be really, really strict. And she shares some eye-opening insights about why compliance teams are actually on your side. We talk about the real limitations of relying on canned content from third-party providers or your broker-dealer, and Tara reveals why those pre-approved posts might be doing more harm than good for your marketing efforts. So what really struck me about this conversation was Tara's practical approach to working with compliance teams and her strategy for creating authentic and engaging content that actually gets approved. She shares some specific examples of how simple word changes can transform a piece of content from compliance problematic to compliance friendly, all while maintaining your authentic voice. So if you've ever felt frustrated by compliance restrictions or found yourself playing it safe with generic content because you're worried about getting in trouble, this conversation is going to completely shift your perspective on what's possible within your current firm structure. Tara's insights will help you build better relationships with your compliance team and create marketing content that actually moves the needle for your business. So without further ado, let's dive in. Tara, I'm so excited to have you joining me on the Finance Marketing Podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. Can we start by having you tell us just a little bit about who you are, what it is you do, maybe how you got into this line of work?
Sure. So, myself, but I've been in marketing in some capacity for nearly 2 decades. I started building out my own client list for copywriting out of college. And just when I felt comfortable enough with that level of experience, I thought, okay, let me branch out into the world and see if my writing skills can inform the way marketing is done. And so I was able to get my first as a copywriter for a performance marketing agency in New York. And then when that contract ended, I got a LinkedIn message from someone at Guardian Life asking if I would be willing to come on board to help build out their social media program from scratch. And I thought, okay, this is cool. Never in a million years did I think that I would be in risk management, wealth management, anything finance related longer than a couple of years. I just thought, wow, I can't imagine an industry being more boring. Fast forward to now, the industry that I've been in all this time, I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's actually one of the more exciting industries and challenging from a marketing perspective to make sure that you're saying all the right things, you're not putting anybody at risk. And it really forces you to be creative, which I really enjoy. Worked primarily with advisors and firms, helping them really leverage LinkedIn to the best of their capability, using email marketing, SEO, content to really drive home their particular brand message, as well as the firms. And that's one of the more exciting topics that I love talking about is around content and advisors. And I know that we're going to be touching on that today. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times, I tell people what it is that I do, and they kind of look at me and they're like, you work with advice. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you in that industry? And it's so fun to be like, well, I chose this industry. I think it's so fun. I think the challenges and the creativity that you have to bring in is so exciting. So totally can relate to you there. And I think too, there are more things that you have to be aware of when marketing in this particular industry. I have a lot of friends who are copywriters in e-commerce and even healthcare and things like that. And the compliance regulations just are non-existent or are not, are, not as rigorous
Right.
as in financial services. And so,
Right. And they should be too. And that's the funny part of it.
right.
Even if you're not in a regulated industry, brand guidelines, brand standards, all of that really should be part of any content strategy. So I'm always kind of like bewildered when I hear people say, "Yeah, we don't have any compliance regulations or restrictions." I'm like, "Okay,
Right. It's just like the
let's
Wild West
go."
out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I do appreciate that it really makes you think about, okay, how can I convey what I'm trying to convey and be really persuasive, but in a really ethical way? And so I think that we're actually kind of lucky in that sense because
I completely agree.
mhm. So I know that what we really want to talk about, Tara, is obviously any advisor that we work with has compliance regulations that they need to follow, but RIAs are typically a little more free to do things however they want to or in ways that they want to than advisors who are working for big wirehouse firms.
Mhm. Yes. And I mean, the reasons for that are understandable. The broker dealer or the wirehouse is really focused on protecting their brand and the main organization. And while they want to help the advisor or the boutique firm underneath the broker dealer, their main priority is protecting themselves, which I get, but it could put advisors at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it can put advisors at a real disadvantage. I work with an advisor who is Edward Jones, and she told me a few years ago when we first started working together that it was only during COVID that Edward Jones was finally like, okay, you guys can post on social media if you need to, because advisors were really pushing back. We can't go door to door. We're not going to networking events right now. We really need a way to be able to reach people online. And so I think a lot of these firms are catching up with how advisors are doing marketing right now. What are some of the challenges that you've seen advisors have to contend with?
Well, on the broker dealer side or the wirehouse side, I think the main issue that they have is just fear in general. I think
Mm,
advisors are afraid that the compliance police are going to knock on their door and they're going to get dinged or fined or worse. And again, the fear is understandable because compliance is such a big part of any advisory career, but especially when you're working underneath a broker dealer as a captive agent or advisor. What advisors don't always grasp, though, is that the compliance of the broker dealer is not looking to restrict them.
mm,
They're not the enemy. They really do want the advisor to be successful because obviously that helps their bottom line as well. So I think that the pain points are around what the advisor believes they can do or believes they can't do,
mm,
and having better communication with the compliance team at a broker dealer to say, no, we actually are your friend. We want to help you. We want to improve your content. You can do certain things, but there's that disconnect there in getting the advisor to understand that. I think another thing that gets in the way of an advisor being able to market themselves is believing that they're actually saving money by going with the content that the broker dealer provides instead of going with their own brand content. And
mm,
yes, I mean, in a way they are, but what they're missing out on is the opportunity to really distinguish themselves in the marketplace because the broker dealer is looking to share content that is relevant to them organizationally,
mhm,
servicing thousands of advisors. They're not really focused on Jane Advisor, who maybe has a market working for XYZ when the broker dealer is really focused on market 1, 2, 3. So I think those two things are really the things that get in the way of an advisor
mm.
using their own content.
Okay, let's dive into both of those because I think both of those are really interesting. So, going back to the first thing that you mentioned, compliance is not your enemy, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we could talk about some things not to do with your compliance officer or your compliance department. Here is how you could make compliance your enemy. And then we can talk about here are some better ways to form a relationship with your compliance department.
Right. Well, don't yell at them. that's, that's number one.
Yeah.
Be nice, go rogue. And let's face it, advisors do that all the time, whether they are in a captive environment or they're on their own. Go rogue, because ultimately you're not going to further any trust with the compliance team. And if anything, they're going to make your life more difficult because they don't trust you.
Right.
I think it all starts with, on the what to do side, with just communication. Most firms under a broker dealer have a compliance officer there readily available. Pick up the phone. I know that phones are just texting and FaceTime and selfies, but pick up the phone, have a conversation and say, this is what I'm trying to do. Or if you have a marketing team, at your firm, or if you work with someone, have a three-way conversation. These are the things we're trying to do to advance my brand. What can I do? What are you not comfortable with? And how can we get you to that place where you are comfortable? If you do that, compliance is going to love you, because they're not going to have to go back and forth with you on reviews. They're just going to say, "Oh, okay, we trust you," and then they're going to work with you even more later on when they know that what you've shared hasn't been a risk. So maybe they'll be willing to go a little step further in future marketing. So really, the what you shouldn't do is be mean and go rogue. What you should do is just have open communication to foster that trust with that department.
I agree. I think when you can explain the why or what it is that you're trying to achieve behind something, instead of just sending, okay, I wrote this, please approve it, really
Mhm.
giving the underlying reasons, I think goes so, so far with compliance
Mhm.
departments, because then they don't have to guess at what you're trying to do, that they're on the same page as you from the beginning. And it also just shows that you're willing to be collaborative and that you're willing to put in the time to give them what they need a little bit more. And I think that that just
Yep,
creates so much mutual trust.
100%.
So, okay, let's move on now to what was the other thing that you had said?
The cost saving.
The cost saving, the canned content. Yes, the canned content. What are your personal feelings on canned content, Tara?
Um, I mean, it has its place, right? Like anything in a marketing strategy, it has its place. If you are brand new, and we'll use social as an example, if you're brand new to social media and you're coming in feeling like it's more of a thing that you have to do as opposed to want to do, and you are contracted with a broker dealer and they do have their own canned content with, I'm not going to go naming the different providers, but they know who they are. There is value in it because it's easy, right? You could just pick what you want, it goes out, compliance has already reviewed it, and that's all great. It shouldn't be the only thing you do. It shouldn't even be the primary thing you do, because honestly, if you just check the analytics of any third party provider of content, whether it's a compliance based provider or just a scheduling software, the analytics show, especially on LinkedIn, that it's just not going to get a lot of traction. If like 15 people see it, like 15 people saw it, that's better than zero. But are you going to be relying on those 15 people over and over again? Especially if those 15 people are just people within your firm who are looking at it, because a lot of advisors are just connected to everybody in their firm, and so where's the value in that? I think if it's part of a mix and you use it to just kind of sprinkle in those gaps in a calendar, that's fine. But really, to be successful as an advisor, you need to be able to put your story out there in a way that's going to be compelling, resonate with people emotionally. And the only people who can do that are you and your team, because you know what your messaging is. The captive content of a third party provider, it's not their responsibility to know that. They have to service thousands of advisors. So it's not my favorite thing, but I understand why it's necessary. But it definitely shouldn't be the whole kit and caboodle that you use in a content strategy if you're an advisor.
Well, I think what you said earlier too about how, the canned content, the firm creates that to serve their needs,
Right.
right? It's not created to serve your needs. per se. That would be a kind of a secondary purpose of it. I suppose their primary purpose is to serve their needs as the firm. Do you ever see advisors taking the canned content and adapting it to their target market or to their story and their voice? How well do you think
I
that works?
I hear them say that they want to. I don't always see that they do because again, the ease of the third party canned content platform is the draw. Like you don't have to do anything. You just have to, you don't even have to do it. You could have like your administrative assistant or executive assistant or your someone on your team, a junior advisor doing the actual scheduling for you. It's just easy. You don't have to do it. So if you put that added wrinkle of saying, oh, why don't you use this to actually adapt your content to your story, they're going to be like, well, I don't want to do that. That's work. Like that's taking time out of my day to get in front of clients. The frustration is in knowing as a marketer, yes, that takes time, but the only way you're really going to get in front of new people is to share original content, and that's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that might take a little bit of an investment, but the chances of you getting a return on that investment with business is much greater than by saving money with a third party provider where the content's not going to be seen by anyone, but it's easy.
Right. I totally agree. And I have heard really only one or two advisors talk about, yeah, I get this canned content and, I was hoping I could repurpose it for my target market. But I think that's actually harder sometimes. Sometimes it feels like you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole when it would have just
Mm-hmm.
been easier and faster to just come up with the content originally yourself and
Yeah.
say what you want to say.
Yep. Completely agree.
So I'm assuming, Tara, that you've worked with advisors who are captive agents
Mm-hmm.
of bigger wirehouse firms. When you're working with those advisors, are you involved in the discussions with compliance, or are you involved just kind of helping the advisor know what they should say in discussions with compliance?
It's a little bit of both. So some of my clients are come from the broker dealer that I used to work with, so I have a good sense of what those compliance rules are. Other times it's not as clear cut, and the rules around what you can post, what can be on your profile, aren't as straightforward. So that does require a conversation. I try to take as much of that heavy lifting off of the advisor because I don't want to lose them in the
Right.
process. I want to keep them happy and focused on what we're trying to do. And so if you, as soon as you start putting headaches and roadblocks in the way, they're like, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. So I like to take that piece out of it. And again, by having that open line of communication, whether it's with the agency or the firm level compliance person or higher up the ladder, it helps me selfishly because now I know what I can do and can't do. But it also helps build trust with the advisor because they're going to know that this process is going to be pretty seamless. So yeah, I feel like a little bit of a broken record with this, but I feel like if you do keep those communication channels open, they're really there's very few things you can't say.
Right.
It's you just can't be stupid. Just don't say that. I guarantee 1,000% return on your 401k. Like that's, but you wouldn't say that anyway
Right.
if you were a reputable advisor. So yeah, for me, the communication piece is key throughout any interactions I have with compliance with the advisor.
What I've really learned over my years working with advisors, and maybe you can relate to this, is that oftentimes it's as simple as swapping out one word for another.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the example that comes to mind most often is let's just swap out the word for achieve for pursue. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to achieve a secure retirement, we're pursuing a secure retirement. And it's as simple as that. And so, just kind of knowing
Yep.
what words any compliance department is going to be like, that sounds the teeniest, tiniest bit promissory. Take
Yep.
it out. And then having your kind of bank of words that you can swap in. Do
Yep.
any examples like that come to mind for you?
Oh yeah, no, immediately. So I don't know why this always comes up as like a ding, but if someone has in their web copy or their social post, our retirement strategies provide peace of mind. The peace of mind piece, I don't know what that's about, but that never is able to get through. And it's always like, can you replace with our retirement approaches can help further financial stability? And you
Yes.
sound like you're an AI bot, right? Because I mean, who
Yes.
talks like that? But if that's going to be the thing that gets the piece moving forward and able to be shared, then fine. And usually what happens is when you provide that feedback from compliance and you share it with the advisor, or you just kind of think on it, you can be like, okay, this sounds robotic.
Mhm.
How can we make this sound more like Dan, or more like Jane, or more like Tim, or more like, Sarah, And once you have those relationships with your advisors and you kind of know the way they speak, you can then say, okay, not peace of mind and not financial stability, but maybe, I don't know, like a safer pathway or something like that
Yep.
just feels a little bit more in line with the way they speak.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When it's something that's so like it's a whole sentence change,
Yeah,
I often kind of discard what compliance says too, but come back with, could we say this instead? This is less promissory or it sounds less promissory. They try so hard. They really do, but they're not
they do.
marketers.
They're not. They're not. And I wish there was, and I do not want to volunteer for this job, but I wish there was a marketing compliance officer or something within a compliance team that can help them understand that, the world of marketing language and compliance language, they're pretty far apart, but yet not really. And
Right.
if those can just work together, I think that a lot of the fears the compliance would have would be eased greatly if there was like a designated marketing person in a compliance ecosystem for a firm.
I think you just created positions around the
I,
globe.
it's not a position I want, so.
I know, right? Somebody would want it though, I'm sure. Well, Tara, I think this has been great. Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you think is important for advisors who are captive agents or who do have more restrictive broker dealers that they're partnered with? Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you think they should know?
Yeah, one thing I think it has to do more with LinkedIn and LinkedIn profiles. Every wirehouse has different rules for how creative you can be on your profile,
Hmm.
but I think that the main things still remain the main things, like have a profile picture that's not your pet turtle. Have a have a cover photo that really speaks to your interest or your target market. If you like to be a public speaker, have a cover photo of you doing a speaking engagement. Like those things they're small, but they can really set you apart, and they're not going to be flagged by compliance because compliance doesn't care about that kind of stuff. They're just really focused on the wording. And the the compliance software that wirehouses have, I mean, there's so many different ones. They're there to protect you, and they're not going to put something out there that they feel is going to damage themselves or damage your brand. At worst, you're going to put something out and it's going to be taken down, and that could be for whatever reason. It's just maybe something sounds promissory, like you said, or you use the wrong date on a certification. Like they're not there to micromanage. They're not there to put you in compliance prison. The softwares are there to protect you. So go into a LinkedIn profile and be as creative as you want to be. Like definitely showcase your personality, write the way you speak, make it an extension of who you are. And then if there are issues, work them out with your team. But don't err on the side of caution, because if you do that, you're really adversely affecting the way you can present yourself in the marketplace. And these days, there are so many advisors. It's really important to really distinguish yourself in what your niche is.
I think that's such great advice. It kind of reminds me of, when you are going in to maybe negotiate a salary or something like that, come in higher than what you actually want because they're going to
Hmm.
negotiate you down, right?
Hmm.
And so I kind of love this advice with the first draft of maybe your LinkedIn profile and your headline. Go with what you really, really would love to say about yourself because it would be better for them to say, oh, yeah, that's great, than you try to limit yourself first before you even bring it to them. And if you can
Exactly.
provide some of that explanation. This is what I'm trying to achieve with this profile. These are the people I'm trying to resonate with. Your chances of getting that approved, I think, are so much higher.
Yeah, completely agree. 100%.
Well, Tara, this has been really great, really insightful. If people want to get in touch with you, where are the best places that they can do so?
Well, I feel like I live on LinkedIn because I'm always on it. So, like, my handle is Tara Meehan, very simple. You could also find me on my website, meehanmarketing.com. And I'm not on any other social because LinkedIn's been the primary. So, I don't
Why
want to
would we be? Why would we
go.
be?
I mean, I like to go on TikTok and fall down a rabbit hole of videos just like the next person. But in terms of where the marketing base is for me, it's on LinkedIn. So
Great. Well, I will link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Tara, for coming on and for talking with us about a topic that, like you said, it doesn't get talked about enough.
yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was great, and I'm looking forward to hopefully this helps someone out there who is on the fence about doing their own content. So I hope this helps them.
Well, thank you to all of our listeners as well. And we'll catch you next time in the next episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.